Let's make an altered vase. But first, coffee.
Today we're going to be working on making this vase. It's very organic, so we don't have to worry about it being perfect. We're going to start, as always, by centering this. We've got quite a bit of clay here, so we need to apply a lot of pressure and kind of go a medium speed. I've got this sped up. I've got a video that you can watch if you don't know how to center. You're going to want to watch that first and practice centering and doing cylinders. Once you have those down, then you can carry on and do a vase like this. So now I've got it centered and I'm making my donut. This donut pull at the beginning, I just swear that this has got to be one of the most important parts if you really want to move a lot of clay all at once. Otherwise, you're just moving a small bits. I love this because it can make it so I only have to do 2 to 3 pulls. Otherwise, I'm sitting there working at it. So this is a great way, especially if you've got a lot of clay. So I've done that donut pull. I'm going to go to the side. I'm going to make my side pulls. I'm going to try to keep my my pulls nice and even. So I have nice, even throwing rings throughout the entire process. It's really hard to tell on here just because it is sped up, but taking your hands off very slow, one at a time, is very important. Especially right at the rim. You're getting up to the top. That part is just going to be a little bit more fragile, and you're going to really want to take your time with this. So here I am making another pull. Right now my walls are pretty thick, so I can get this pretty darn tall, which I love for a vase. So making that pull, get up to that top. Oh, well, here you can see that I've got a little blob of clay that fell off of my sponge, so I had to get that off. When you're getting stuff off like that, make sure you're not just picking at it. You take your sponge or your finger, in this case I use the back of my finger, and just set it on the clay and let the wheel do the job. So as it's spinning it, it's going to catch several times and just pull it right off and make it nice and smooth and even. So with this pull, I'm starting to shape. You can tell I'm bellying it out a little bit. Having the body of this vase just rounded out and a little bit more, just a little fatter vase is going to make it easier to bring in the sides to create that hole in the center. So I'm really going to work on getting the body of it just a little rounded, and now I'm collaring in the neck. So I like to use 3 points of each hand and pull that neck in a little bit after each pull. Then what I'm going to do is do a straightening pull. The straightening pull is just like a regular pull when you're bringing your clay up. But instead of bringing it up, what I'm trying to do is get that neck so that when you're pulling it in, when you're collaring it, it's bringing a lot of clay into a smaller area so it's thicker. We don't want it nice and thick, but we want it the same thickness all the way from the rim all the way to the base. So on each time I collar it, what I'm going to do is when I'm done coloring it, I'm going to make a little straightening pull. That's going to also, besides keeping it the same thickness, it also will straighten it. So when you're pushing that clay in, the clay will start to ripple on the inside. Of course, we don't want any rippling, so we're going to really take our hand and we're just going to do a little straightening pull right there. And that's going to just keep it all nice and even. The neck is getting really weak with the water, and it is wanting to just collapse. So I'm going to be very careful at this point and be very gentle and make sure that my hands are being very slow, going on and off very slow and purposefully, and also slowing my wheel down will help with this. And ta-da, we have a nice vase, but we don't want to keep it this way. So now I'm going to press in on the side. I want my hands wet so that it slides. We don't want the clay to stick to our hands at all. So we're going to dampen them a little bit, not too damp because we don't want to be dripping with water either. So I'm just going to press them. I want both sides to be nice and even. So I'm going to start with just little presses and watch it, and try to work both hands all the way to each other, right in the center there. So as you can see, I'm just sitting here. It's almost like I'm playing with a balloon, like you're kind of pressing a balloon in. That's kind of how it feels. Maybe a deflated balloon. I don't know. But I don't like to cut it off of the bat yet either. I'm going to keep it on there just because that's going to really help keep the shape of it. Even though I'm altering it and I'm changing the shape of it, I don't want the base of my piece to be wobbly. So I keep it attached to the bat until I'm completely done. So you'll see that. But right now, my main goal is to push those sides in. At this point, I would like to, I'm not going to trim this because trimming would be a nightmare. So I'm going to use my wooden knife and remove any excess clay. And there's always a ton of excess clay right down at the bat. So I'm going to take that and I'm just going to remove it. Here we go, just removing. Make sure you're keeping your hand very steady and the blade towards the clay. So if you can see, I really keep my arm on my leg as tight as I can get it, and then my left hand is supporting my right hand. So both hands are always working together, and they're almost always either tucked into the side of my body or resting on my legs. I used to rest my arms on my splash pan a lot, but I started getting bruises from doing that, so I don't do that anymore. If that works for you, that's great, but I get, I think, too tense and I just press too hard. But anyhow, if it works for you, that's awesome because it's a great way to stay stable. As you can see, I'm pressing these sides in. I want both of the sides to go together right in the middle, and then I'm going to cut it. So I'm going to use my pin tool. You'll see here as soon as I can find it. Oh, never mind. I've got a rib instead. I'm going to clean this up and I love these red ribs. So I use them for everything. This, I'm just kind of smoothing things up. And you'll see I use it to get the slip off a lot. I use it to shape. I use it sometimes to throw. They're just great. But here I'm just kind of getting this a little more rounded. When I was pressing in, I pressed a little harder in some spots and less in others, and so it wasn't quite an even roundness. And as I said before, I want it organic, so I don't really want it completely even, but I just want it to look good, obviously. Isn't that what we all want? So I'm going to just kind of press in anywhere that I think it should be pressed in. This is your art. You can just make it any way you want. Now, if you don't want it quite so organic and you want it more even, then the best way to do that is wait until it's time to trim. Don't do this as soon as you throw it. So throw it, let it dry a few days or whatever you normally wait, and then when you trim it, that's when you would do this. But I wanted it more organic, and so the best way for me to do that is to do it as soon as I throw it. And so that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm showing you. You can try it both ways or either way, whatever you want. I just think you should try it. So more of this, just kind of cleaning up anything. I know it's not going to be trimmed, so a lot of times I want to remove things, like maybe some of my throwing rings. So I'm just going to play with it until I like it. Here I'm taking that pin tool that I said. I'm going to make a slit right down the center of it. You'll see here in a second how much I did. Right there. Ooh, that was kind of fast. We'll slow it down and give you a little replay here. You can see that slid a lot better now. I'm doing that on both sides. And it doesn't have to be perfectly even for the length or where it's placed. So just so that when you press the two sides together, they're gonna attach to each other. So you just kind of play with it. And if you do end up having any areas that didn't get clay, you can take some of your trimmings, especially that little base that we had cut off, and smash that up a little bit and place it in those holes. You can really patch a lot of things at this stage if you're using the same clay that came off of your piece. That way they both have the same amount of moisture in it and they're gonna weld well together. So you can see I'm just using my rib. Now I've got the yellow rib. Like I said before, I use these mud tool ribs for everything. I need to get sponsored by these guys, I'm pretty sure. I'm just joking, but I do love them a lot. I just sit here and play with them and get this area how I want it. Like I've said a couple of times, I want it organic, so I don't want it perfectly round. I want it just a little irregular, but I do want all of the seams nice and sealed. I don't want any openings where I had cut it and altered it. I want to make sure that, like I said, all of the seams are sealed. If you're anything like me at this point is when you're going to take the most time on this. You're going to sit here and nitpick this baby to death. So, and it's really hard not to, because you really want every little detail to be how you want it. And so you have this envision in your mind, and you're just going to sit here and poke and prod it. And you may, at this point, it may just collapse on you. So try really hard not to overwork it during this stage. I find that most people ruin their pieces at the end. So they'll have a beautiful piece and they will sit there and keep working it way past its prime. So remember, it's always a good time to stop. So I also like to look down on the inside of it and make sure that if any of those seams, if you can see any where you created slip or anything like that, I like to clean it up. I don't want people looking down in it seeing where the seams were. So a paintbrush is fabulous for this. It's probably my go-to every time I seal anything. So here I am just cleaning up anything I can see. All right, this looks good to me. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope to see you in the studio soon.